Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Councilman Daley?
Here.
Councilman Popescu? Here. Mayor Pro Tempore Duper?
Present.
Councilman Leonard? He's right behind me. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, do we have any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
All right, at this time, we'll do the invocation and pledge of allegiance, led by our own Councilman Popescu.
We bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity you've given us to be in this amazing country, this beautiful state, and this amazing city. We ask that you bless us tonight as we make decisions that benefit all of us in our community. Thank you again for everything. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is that time for oral reports from the public. If anyone who has not already submitted a card would like to step forward and make a comment, you're welcome to do so, to have your 2 minutes. But we will hold it to 2 minutes since we got a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight. Seeing no takers. Kurt, no? Okay. All right. No takers. We'll move on. We'll deal with conflicts of interest as they arise, and we'll go right into our first scheduled item number 1. Public hearing on Council Bill O-2018-01, a second reading and roll call vote, but this is also a public hearing. So.
This, as we discussed in the last meeting, this is a resolution to eliminate day-to-day operations of from special event permits for incidental vendors associated with those events, and as long as they're operating underneath the hosting entity's business license.
And so, just for background, for those of you in the audience, this came up with a couple of businesses here in town that host charity events, and there was some concern and confusion regarding permits and licensing for those events. And so we've come up with a plan to make it more of a standard across the board for everybody to fit in with all those type of events.
That is correct.
Okay, so it is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public. Come on down. Kurt, it's your second. We will close the public hearing and move on to the roll call vote. Do I have a motion?
I'll move Council Bill 0201801.
Second.
And does that motion include reading by summary title only?
That is correct.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Madam Clerk.
This is titled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Loma Linda, County of San Bernardino, State of California, adding section 5.04.195 to the Loma Linda Municipal Code relating to exemptions for vendors participating in a validly permitted special event. And you may vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 2. There's also a public hearing on Council Bill O-2018-02. This is the first reading. We will be setting for a second reading in June, on June 12th, amending Chapter 8.2 of the Loma Linda Municipal Code, addressing mandatory recycling requirements.
Yes, I would like to have Jeff Peterson present this item, please.
The item is about recycling. As you all know, we've had some struggles in the past. We started about 16 years ago when the city manager was called to task by the state. Our audit did not go well. We were not performing at a level the state appreciated, and at that time he reprioritized that as something that should be happening. At that time, we didn't call it recycling, we called it diversion, because we were trying to extend the life of our landfills. A couple of years later, the vendor that we were using, the hauler, chose to move on his business to the coast, and he sold it to Vertex Services out of Rialto. They serviced us for a couple of years until the end of the contract, And we came up with a new franchise contract that put the onus upon the hauler for the diversion numbers. We were asked to achieve a 50% diversion within a reasonable length of time. Each new vendor that came and helped us, we held their feet to the fire trying to encourage them to be more proactive. The following contract was then won by Republic, and they went through some efforts, and they got our numbers up a little better. At that time, the state was looking at just numbers. They were only concerned with how much tonnage was being diverted. We were even utilizing the services of a waste-to-energy process out of Long Beach. It was quite expensive because of the long haul, and it was creating energy by burning the trash. The least responsible way of getting rid of our trash is what we thought, and it was more expensive. Republic did quite well, but they again refocused their efforts over to the coast, and we were just an enclave out here in the IE, and they sold our franchise for the last few years to CR&R. CR&R is more in the Inland Empire, in the North San Diego County, Paris, this area, and they have actually chosen a different route for how they approach things. And they have invested heavily in diversions, in material recovery efforts, and finally into the new technology of anaerobic digestion. So they are actually taking organics and creating gas out of it, cleaning it up to the point that they can put it into our gas lines, and we get to use it that way as well. The other vendors, the other franchises, haven't been quite so proactive in that area. I believe some of you may have already visited the plant, and it's quite impressive. So that's where we are today, and each year we get an audit from the state, and up until recently we were looking at numbers. Our numbers were good. We sold them the idea that our numbers are good, and therefore we should just be able to continue what efforts we are doing. The state, however, has morphed into programs. They are more interested in, are we doing the programs that they feel are appropriate for getting the diversion numbers? And these programs now are their focus, and through our last 2 audits, they were very adamant that we approve a resolution that deals with commercial and organics. Commercial for the last 5 years, organics for the last year. And what this resolution does, it talks about commercial, which is 5 multifamily units or more, and all commercial businesses, and then the organics, which is 4 cubic yards of organic materials produced by a business per week. Currently, we only have 2 businesses that qualify under that, and we are looking to have voluntary compliance, and we are looking at down the road having more regulations be handed down from the state. So we are anticipating having to do more education, outreach, and affecting more people. We have a wonderful citizenry. Our residential numbers are excellent. The self-hauls are those that we don't have much effect over, and that brings our numbers down. But currently we're nearly 50%. We are expecting the state to bump those numbers up in the near future, and we are looking to have more participation from our current vendors who are doing an admirable job. And that's the background of where we're at, and where we'd like to go is to codify recycling.
So some of us had the opportunity to go down to the anaerobic digestion facility down in Paris about 2 weeks ago, and it was actually very, very impressive. In fact, they're running their entire fleet of trucks from that facility on the natural gas that they're producing there. And so what they're taking is they're taking food waste and green waste, and they're feeding it to this digestion chamber that converts it all to natural gas, and they're powering their own fleet. It's actually pretty impressive there. And now they're right at that point where they're going to start putting gas back into the gas pipeline.
Correct. They had to install a new cleaner to clean the gas up.
Apparently, this is like the only facility in the United States that's doing this.
Correct.
It's pretty impressive. Anyway, but They also forewarned of some more state regulations related to residential recovery, and so there's going to be some challenges with the residential service we anticipate coming up, right? Is there like a Senate bill or something that's related to that?
That's working its way through Congress now, to the state legislature now, yes.
Yeah, so that's coming down the road. But this is kind of our first step to do this resolution.
Correct.
Okay.
Question. I read the staff report, and I have to concede I got a little lost in it because it's pretty professional. Thank you. One of my questions is to kind of boil this down. Currently, we're doing well with the average homeowner and their recycling. Is that correct?
Correct.
But those standards are going up, and so we may have a challenge in the future. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
Are we worried about that, or are we already exceeding whatever the new standards may be?
We are worried about that.
And how are we communicating with our, I have a wife that's rabid about recycling, and if I tell her we're not recycling enough, I may get recycled, I don't know, but I'm wondering, what is our strategy to deal with that? And then I have questions about the businesses that you were talking about.
I believe that our residential customers are doing quite well, and we're going to continue to remind them and encourage them. However,
If I understand you, we believe we're doing quite well.
No, our
but
numbers-
the state doesn't necessarily feel it.
oh, no, our reports do show that our resi customers are doing quite
But the
well.
standards are going up.
Correct.
So right now, the state mandate that we have to recycle 50%, okay? And
50% of what?
of the total. So
Of the
if-
total base year of 2013.
So for example, if you have a total waste of 100 ton, we're supposed to recycle 50 ton, and right now we have 49.8. But the state is
So
going to
we're
move it up
close.
to 60%.
So if we can get Councilman Lenart to recycle more, then we'll cross that threshold.
And so in addition to that, they're also going to start mandate that we have to recycle all the food waste, and that is coming.
That's the bill we're talking about.
Right, so, but right now, they already mandate for the businesses to do that. So
How do
that's what
they
we're doing.
assess that, whether we're recycling enough food waste or not? They weigh
So,
it.
so what will have to do is the restaurant will have a separate container for the food waste.
Okay. And again, I don't want to belabor this because I'm all for recycling, but how are we communicating with local businesses that they need to do more recycling?
We went to visit each one of them,
Oh, really?
yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of response?
Including apartment complex
Oh,
and
okay.
duplex and fourplex. and so,
Okay.
Yes.
So also, I would say included in that, and when the residential regulations come down, is a pitch, and we haven't heard that yet as far as the cost, but a pitch from our hauler, CR&R, that they will do all of that required,
The education
The
outreach is,
educational-
and as a matter of fact,
okay.
I staffed a recent event at Monterey Pines
Okay.
with their representative, and it was well-received. And that's where we're going now is the multifamily. We're making sure that they all have recycle bins next to their trash bins, and so that they can divert, and they're learning what things are divertible. Some people just think it's a cardboard box
Yeah,
or a pop bottle, and it turns out there's a lot more than that that's recyclable.
Because I'm fully supportive. This is good stuff. I just want to be sure that our community, including our businesses, understands that it's all for one and one for all on this, that we've got a standard we have to hit. Are we unusual in not meeting the new standard, or are there a lot of other communities in the same boat, I'm assuming?
We're in the same boat. Actually, though, we are doing quite well.
Okay, good.
Compared to other communities, we are exceeding, but we still need to get a little more push.
Okay. And the industry we're working with is going to help us with that communication.
Correct. The franchise agreement has that spelled out, actually.
And what is the timeline on this?
This legislation has already been passed that we're trying to address right now.
Okay.
We're already under that mandate, and we're codifying it.
I believe the residential was 2020. wasn't it?
Correct. It's down the line a little bit. We have a
Okay.
little bit of time, but like I say, the CRNR's representative has touched every door in the commercial district as well as the multifamilies, and she's been receiving excellent positive response.
Okay. Excellent report. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is also a public hearing, so we can conduct that now. I guess Kurt doesn't want to come down for this one either. All right, any other takers? Anybody else want to talk about this topic? All right, we'll close the public comment. And what do we need to do next? Just motion to set it for the next event? Motion from Dr. Lenart.
Council Bill number 02-01802. Can't hear you. Council Bill number 02-10802. First readings. Now, and we'll set the second reading for June 12, 2018.
Remember, you've got a massive television audience you've got to address, too. And I'll second the motion.
Can we have a first and a second? Does this require an official vote or just a basic consensus? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And we have now set that for June 12th. It really was very impressive. Now, I don't know, everything comes with a cost, obviously, but this facility that we went down to was actually, it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat to see stuff like that in practice in place. So we will hear more about that later. Moving on, we have the consent calendar.
I'll second it, and I'd like to pull a couple of items. Item 10. And probably item 8. I had questions on 7 as well, but after I read the staff report, I think that responded to the questions I had.
Let's just deal with them right now. Number 8.
Well, yes, you have a question on number,
Yeah,
number 10 is easy.
What's that?
Number 10 is easy. That's the
Okay.
Loma Surgical Hospital. They're finally going to join up for
Yeah,
the,
and my question on that was,
the
I assume we're talking about the median on, okay, so we're going to handle that now. What about all the weeds in front of the same facility?
what the way it works is they're supposed to maintain it, their facility, but if they do not maintain it, we have option that we can go in and take care of it and send them the bill. Correct?
That's correct. However, on the private property, that probably should be a code enforcement issue.
Okay. Because as you know, I'm kind of a booger on that, but they've got a lot of grass out there or weeds, and as long as they maintain that, because the median has been a problem. So if we get the median, that's a good first step. On number 8, I tried to work my way through the landscape maintenance report, which is massive and has more detail than I could keep up with. What's the take-home message on it?
Is that if you look at it, there's different district, and each one represent
But it's a whole book.
right, but it's always table.
Yeah.
That represent every parcel here in town.
Yeah.
And then each one have to pay a little bit for landscape assessment district to maintain Barton Road, Parkway, and so forth, the area around their
Okay.
neighborhood.
I've noticed that the median right out here, just north of City Hall, if I'm going west, there's some dead bushes there.
Yes.
I mean, we do a good job of maintaining it, but
Yes.
what's the skinny on that?
Now, there's two portions for maintaining Barton Road median. Part of it is LMD, part of it is the general fund
Okay.
budget to maintain the Barton Road medians.
Okay.
And we just spend a lot of time and effort and money put in the rock
Yeah,
at the nose
yeah,
of the
yeah,
median.
yeah, it looks
and
good.
We just put in carpet roses.
Okay.
And we just plant, this year alone, almost 2,000 shrubs in the neighborhood, throughout the city, including the median and the landscape on the south side of Barton Road.
Okay.
But the dead bushes are where a car recently went through it, had an accident.
Oh,
Over here in front
Yes,
of
yes.
Stater Brothers,
Right.
there's a traffic there's a car that ran into the bushes and
okay.
ran off.
okay. Well, I noticed, so that's it. Okay, good. No, I mean, I feel that overall we do an outstanding job with our manicuring, our landscaping, and so forth as far as the city's concerned. I do still, as you know, get concerned about all the weeds that grow on the Mountain View off-ramp and on-ramp, and then we spray them, and then there's dead weeds, and I don't know what the resolution to that is ultimately, but
We just have to keep at it and
Okay.
Rain for a little bit, and then after the rain, it's nice sunshine, so the weeds
yeah,
are going
yeah,
down.
yeah, okay, thank you.
I think we had a first and a second already, so if we're all ready to vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye, and the consent calendar moves. Moving on to old business, which there isn't any. New business, Council Bill R-2018-19. And this was a little confusing because the staff report talks about a helipad, but over on the left in the, it said something about proposal to build and operate a helicopter.
Did it say helicopter or helipad? Heliport?
Well, no, in the staff report it says helipad or heliport, but over in the directory on to the left of the agenda, it
We
says...
assumed that was the city manager's helicopter.
I
back
thought we
there.
were...
It's a long way from his house to work, so he'll need to use that for commuting daily.
Yeah, it says approving LLUH proposal to build and operate a helicopter.
Ah, there you go, yes.
Hey,
So,
Yeah.
I thought we were bringing them back. I grew up where I remember the two helicopters we had here, so...
Yeah.
Remember those? And then...
Big old bad boys.
And
yeah,
we'd
I
tow
do.
them down every year in the parade, and,
Yeah.
there's a long history of that here with the
I'd say
institution.
bring them back. I'm good.
So currently, there are two helipads at the existing hospital, the north and the south helipad. With the construction of the new tower, the north helipad will be abandoned, and there will be a new helipad on the new tower. The existing helipad on the children's hospital will remain, so there will continue to be two helipads operational there.
So the north helipad is being eliminated?
Correct.
Oh, really?
When they're done with the new tower.
Because that was going to be my
Yeah.
next question is, what's the implementation date on this? And then the second question was location, so I think you
Yeah,
covered-
when the new tower comes into operation,
Yeah.
the idea is you can land the patient and take them straight down into the emergency or
Yeah,
surgery
yeah,
area or
yeah,
wherever they
yeah.
need. So
So the implementation date, we're looking at 2020 plus.
2020 plus, correct.
Okay.
The location was assessed as part of the original EIR, as well as noise, flight patterns, and impacts were all evaluated as part of the EIR for the expansion project. The purpose for this is specifically that the FFA and the California Department of Transportation requires a specific council action independent of overarching environmental actions to approve the helipad. So basically, you are approving something that you have already approved. and staff is of course recommending approval of the approval.
Okay.
I'll move it. But I have a question. Is 11324 correct? Is that a misspelling, or is that North Tower have a
Separate
different
address.
address?
It does have a new and separate address,
It
correct?
does. Okay. I didn't know.
Because the existing building
Could still exist.
will be there in some form, shape, or whatever. Yeah, so it'll have a new address.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's only three of us, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And it carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 13. JPIA meeting delegate. This is always typically the city manager that goes to this. And I've always been the alternate, but I've never gone to one. You always go to it, so.
Yes, because it's at 7 o'clock in
In like La
La
Quinta or
Palma.
somewhere.
No, La Palma, which is in
Where's
LA
La
County.
Palma? That was my question. I've never-
Cerritos, you know Cerritos?
Oh, okay,
And it's just on the south side of the freeway.
okay. I move it.
It requires that an elected official be the delegate, and the city manager can be the alternate. Thank you.
So you've been the delegate, right?
I guess. Yeah. I get their emails. Yeah, we need a motion. Unless anybody else wants to go. It's going to be riveting, talking about insurance. For Jarb.
It's a long drive, I'm telling you.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, and that carries. Item number 14 is our budget proposal. Is this where we need to all assemble as a group? I know, but do we need to bring
This
the
is
budget
the main
committee
reason I came, Diana, so.
up on the dais?
And you have to open up the housing authority, so.
Okay, well, we'll open up a joint meeting with the Loma Linda Housing Authority. I really thought, I was kind of excited. I thought we were going to put chairs up here for everybody. Didn't we talk about that? No? Oh, all right. Can we have each of the members get up and do a half-hour speech on their position on? I just want to hear Kirk speak tonight.
Diana will
Diana, it's all
present
you, sorry.
the budget.
Council members, Barbara is handing out some updates to a couple of sheets. We had a couple of revisions, one to the appropriations resolution for changes to the population that the state issued, and then we had
Can you speak
changes
into the
to-
microphone for
We-
some of us that are elderly? We need the help.
And then we had changes to the COPS grant in the revenue recognition, as far as we recognize revenue in the same period that we expend it. So we're expending a little bit more, so we had to budget the revenue to offset it. So those are the new handouts that you have. And then we're going to go through the standard presentation. And I just want to remind council that we did have a joint workshop with the Budget Committee on April 19th, where we presented, the city manager presented in detail kind of the revenues and expenditures for the general fund and the major enterprise funds. And there's a great discussion and opportunity to discuss. We also discussed pensions in that meeting, so it was a good meeting. So it's standard.
Are we going to go through items like A through L independently, or is this kind of an overall presentation?
This is just the presentation on the numbers, and then those items you can adopt. I think the Budget Committee will be invited up to give their presentation, and then the city manager will give the 5-year CIP, and then everything else can be adopted or discussed independently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, we do the general fund as a whole, and then we do the city as a whole, and then we do the Loma Linda Housing Authority, which gets adopted as a separate budget. So we want to touch base on the top 7 revenues for the city, which is our sales tax, our overhead from the capital funds, the motor vehicle license fee. It's an in lieu. We actually get it through property tax from the county. It's a swap that was happened through the state. And then we get property tax, our refuse contract for the franchise, and then we have the law enforcement contract with the Loma Linda Medical Center, and franchise fees. All these revenues compose about 80% of our total general fund revenue, which is about $16.7 million in total for just these 7 top revenues. So you could see that any loss of any of these revenues would be a serious impact to the city. And then here we'll look at the revenues by category. We have our admin budget, which is about 7% of our total general fund budget. We have general government, which includes just general operations for facilities and stuff like that. That's about 11% of our budget. Then we have the police service, which is 25% of our budget. We have community development, which is about 4%. Fire department, which is about 36%. And public works, which is 16% of our budget.
Quick question. In which one of those categories are the rebates that we give back to some of the businesses that we have relationships with?
In the general government,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
So that will be the incentives that we do for businesses, for sales tax and the new TOT tax incentives.
The other thing for the public that may be watching, one of my questions was why some of these expenditures are reducing, are lower. Community development, for example, and I understand that. Can you explain that?
In community development, it varies by development activity or any building activity that's going on within the community. We anticipated additional activity in the current year, but it's actually going to be a little bit deferred. So. And
a lot of this is occurring in the current year, and so we don't expect. But there's a lot more development occurring. And next year, we don't expect as much development occurring. And is that correct?
Well, we do anticipate additional projects coming online, but there may be like delay in when the actually construction and the permits are pulled. So there are development projects out there.
So there could be delays.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And in some cases, we've seen the engineering for that happen this year, although the community will see the physical element happen next year, but in terms of the business that happened in City Hall, some of that stuff happened in this period.
Okay. So overall, we have an expenditure budget of $20.6 million. And we had, here you'll see the impact on the fund balance. So we're starting off with $12.7 million. We have revenues and resources of $20.8 million. And then we have expenditures of $20.6 million. So we're ending with 12.9, and so we're adding a total of $169,400 to our general fund budget. That's our projection for the 2018-19 budget for general fund. So this is the breakdown of the general fund balance based upon categories. So we have unassigned. So we're going to end up with $6.1 million in unassigned. We have assigned, which is for our equipment replacement, which is $1.25 million. And then we have committed, which is kind of what we call the rainy day fund for emergency purposes, and that is $5.5 million. So then we're going to look at the city as a whole. We have the general fund, which we discussed, and that's about 51% of our revenue total for the whole city. Then we have our sewer fund, which is about 12%. We are seeing an increase of 4%, which is due to, we have rate increases for both the components. We have the city component side, and then we have the component for the city of San Bernardino for the treatment part. The LLC, we're seeing a slight decrease in revenue due to, I think, mainly interest earnings.
Again, for those that may not be familiar, can you describe what LLCCP fund is?
It's the Loma Linda Connected Community, which we offer internet services to the community for certain sections of the community that are equipped with the fiber optics that the city offers. We also have commercial accounts for the medical center and the VA. And then, and we're also looking into potentially leasing that out or having an agreement with a vendor to take over the operations of the LLCCP community. So the Economic Development Assistant City Manager is looking into that agreement at this time. Then we have our water fund, which again, it's 17% of our total city revenue, and then we're seeing an increase of 5%, which is also due to rate increases within the fund. And we did budget a little bit for expansion of service connections. And then we have our capital funds, which are development impact fees that we collect. So we are anticipating collecting some major development impact fees for projects that are coming due and projects that will be starting here in the near future. And then we have other funds.
And if I can ask on the projects, that's primarily residential, or do we have business?
We have commercial as well.
Okay. But
So
we have quite a number of residential units that are going to be going in over the next year.
Correct. And under the new policy where they will be paying the development fees on when they pull their permits, so we'll be seeing the funds a little bit sooner than we anticipated.
Thank you.
Before. And we do have a couple of commercial projects for hotels.
We have a car wash, a hotel, and potentially 2 other reasonable-sized commercial projects. Out in the wind somewhere, yeah. But we have Candlewood for sure. They've already gone through Planning Commission approval, but there's potentially a 4th one out there as well.
Okay, and other funds? Oh, is there another question?
No. Actually, I was just going to give a little praise to our planning department, AKA Conrad, and the entire staff, because really they've been out there in really recruiting a lot of fabulous business in the last couple of years, and we've seen a lot of our business community grow, and with that our chamber grow and all that. So no, I was just going to, popped into my head, and I was going to say it, and then I stopped, and then I thought, no, I'm going to say it anyway. Conrad, thank you very much. You guys are doing a great job.
And then other funds, as you see, 9% of our budget. There is a significant increase in this. We do have a grant from the state for the Mountain View off-ramp. So this includes grants and any special revenues like the Measure I or gas tax and stuff like that. So overall, we do have a general city budget of $40.9 million. And these are the expenditures within those categories. So we anticipate doing fairly well, and we are spending a total of $45 million. As you can see, we will be doing significant capital improvement projects from the development impact fees, and then we will be doing projects like the Redlands, California, the California Widening Project, and other projects, the Mountain View off-ramp project. So we will be expending those funds that we collected. Also in the water fund, we are planning to hopefully complete our water meter swap out, so to install the 4G meters so we can get more accurate readings and more timely readings, and then hopefully automate the system a little bit more.
For people that may be watching, can you describe that a little more specifically? In other words, there are a lot of bills that can be automated now, and City Services has software that will move us in that direction, correct?
What we, last year, well, this year, we purchased software to update our billing system. We are still in the implementation phases of it, but we're hoping to be a little bit more automated than we currently are right now. We do have, as far as like the meters out in the field, we still have some that have to be physically read, and we have quite a few that are on radio read, but they do have to drive by and get readings. We have maybe like a third that are automated where we can get the readings in-house. So we're hoping to swap out all those meters that we can't, so we can do all the readings in-house in the finance department just send out, and then just address any variances or any issues for non-reads or stuff like that. And then with the new software and integrating the new software, we'll be able to maybe even do electronic billing,
Right.
and online or call-in voice payments. And so we're hoping to improve the technology and get a better operating software.
So, and I'm pressing this because I've had some citizens in my community ask about it. Ultimately, my homeowner's insurance policy, for example, my auto insurance policy, that's automatically taken out of my checking account. It's all electronic. I see it, but I don't have to do anything. Ultimately, city services like water and so forth will be able to be automated like that?
Well, we do have the option currently to do what is an ACH auto debit from your account if you enroll in that program. So we generate the bills, and then we send a file to the bank to take that money out of your account. So that is available to customers currently.
Okay.
And then we do have the option for them to go online with their account and pay it online using a credit card or some form of payment there.
Okay, good.
Yeah. We do have those, but we're hoping to be more automated, even more so, where even sending out electronic bills to an email address or notifications via electronic form.
Perfect, because a couple of weeks ago I was on vacation. My son had to call and tell me I hadn't paid the bill for city services, so we had to scramble.
So, yes, we are
So
looking
if it's
at,
automated, it's easier.
we are looking at those improvements.
Okay, thank you.
So like I said, we have a total of 45.1 million in expenditures for the city as a whole. So we are looking at, this is showing our beginning fund balance and our ending fund balance, and I'm going to go to this one where we'll actually show the change for the current year. So we are looking at spending a little bit out of fund balance to the tune of $268,900. And like I said, this is mainly for capital expenditures where we may collect the development impact fees in 1 year and the expenditures actually happen in the next year. So we do draw down on the fund balance for those purposes. And here we have the Loma Linda Housing Authority. As you recall, when the RDA dissolved, we took over and formed a housing authority. And the main operations for the housing authority are we have loans out for property purchases, so we are collecting on those loans. The majority of the revenue is interest on those loans out there. And expenditures are basically consulting services. We do have a lot of compliancy reporting that we have to do for the housing authority. So consultant, legal, if we do have any of those properties that come up and we have to resell those properties, we have legal involved. We do have projects like we have the current Mary Erickson project where there's land and we're hoping to expand some low income housing available to the community, a few units in that area. So those are the main expenditures that we incur in the housing authority right now. But pretty much it is self-sustaining. The interests that we're getting back on those loans are paying for the services required. Okay. And this is our conclusion. And again, we're just, the proposed budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year for the general fund includes the 6.19 million in unassigned, the 1.25 million in assigned, and the 5.5 million in committed fund balance. So we have a total of 12.9 million, sorry. And then, as always, as we stated in the workshop, we are pretty conservative on our revenue projections, and we're very careful with our proposed expenditures. So, and at this moment, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the whole budget process, the department heads, the staff involved, the hard work, the long hours put into the budget process, and I want to thank everybody involved. I want to thank the budget committee, and at this time I'd like to invite the chair up for his presentation if there's any questions. I can take any questions.
Now, good presentation, and I've got comments, but I'll wait for the chair of the Budget Committee to share his report first.
Council on, excuse me, I'll back off. I'd like to thank the council for having the opportunity to set. I didn't know the budget was that volatile.
We'll budget some money for speakers next year.
Basically, I think we'll just kind of shortcut a little bit this year. And basically, the committee has had always in wonderment of all the employees that worked here. And so we wanted to make it sure this year we wanted to really thank them for that. So I'm just going to read this one portion of it. And the Budget Committee wishes to thank the employees and staff of the City of Loma Linda. It appears from the Great Recession to now, the culture of employment in the city has moved to increase mutual respect between employees and management. The Budget Committee recognizes the city manager's leadership in creating this new culture between employees, union, management, and the city. The Budget Committee recognizes that the management style has created an environment that encourages opposing forces to work together on tough decisions that greatly contribute to Loma Linda having a balanced budget. The Budget Committee again wishes to thank those employees that sacrificed during the uncertain days of the Great Recession and had enough belief to continue to work for Loma Linda. The city functions because of you, the employees. Without you, the city would stop working for the citizens of Loma Linda. So other than that, I believe everybody here has read our report. And if there's any particular questions, I'll be happy to answer them now.
I don't have any questions, but since nobody else is speaking up, I do have a couple of comments. I was out of town for the budget workshop, but I had the opportunity yesterday to spend probably close to a couple hours with the city manager working my way through it. This city council position has given me the opportunity to interact in different settings with public servants from a number of other communities that are local to us. And I have to say that I'm very, very proud of the work that our staff does, our city manager and finance director do, as well as the budget committee, because we've been able to balance a budget and even have surpluses when there are other communities nearby that are having huge problems. And just to comment on something I've commented on before, we're about to embark on this Redlands Boulevard and California Boulevard intersection to redo that, overhaul that. And that's all on our backs because Redlands can't afford to do it. Mm-hmm. And we can't even split it with them. So my hat's off. I mean, the whole budget committee, you guys are volunteers. You're not getting paid to do this. And you may want to build that into your next year's budget. I don't know. But from my perspective, thank you very much for the hard work and your expertise that you apply to this. And then I appreciate your comments regarding the city staff too, because the unions have cooperated in some tough budget times. Our other staff has as well, and I'm very, very proud of our city. So thank you for your hard work and your contributions to it, and you too, Diana.
Thank you.
Jay, I actually had a question. Sorry. You recommended last year that we go into multi-year budget,
Mm-hmm.
and you're recommending that this year. So what has been the reaction of the staff to your recommendation?
I believe that at least the city manager has created at least a 5-year budget plan for the capital improvement. And that has allowed him to see things that are coming down the road a little bit better. And I also would recommend the same thing for the city council, to adopt a multi-year plan, to start to estimate and at least kind of give the idea, let's play with a budget it's not really concrete, but does it make sense for the second year or third year out? Agreed. Trying to predict 2 or 3 years out is hard. However, when there's if you see a big train coming at you, the quicker you move out of the way, the less danger that you're in. And when we see all the contributions that we're going to have to go in for the pension plans, that's almost like a big train coming at you. The better we start moving out of the way and preparing for that, the better. A multi-year plan allows you to be able to do better, make a decision today that we're going to move in that direction and fill it appropriately so that the future council people can have an easier choice to make of saying, yeah, we have savings for that, or as much savings that we could get out of it. So does that explain?
Yeah, Jarv wants to say.
Yes, just to let you know that in addition to the typical 5-year capital improvement projects, I also do the 5-year budget for every revenues account and every expenditures, and just for my own information. And I share with the budget committee last year, but because there's a lot of things coming, like the PERS and retirement and so forth, and I prefer to do that than do a 2-year budget, which we can look into do a 2-year budget, and which is going to be easier for the staff the following year and so forth. But we still recommend that even though we do a 2-year budget, we still need to look at it every 6 months.
So it's we're talking about doing a 1-year budget, but a projection
Correct.
of 2 to 3 years, so we
Yes.
see where we're going to be potentially. Does that kind of capture what you guys are hoping for, or is that?
Yeah, like I said, the current budget is always more concrete. Anything farther in the future is a lot softer, but that allows planning to take place of trying to put something in place. So you're not thinking at the last minute or being purely reactive, but you're now actually trying to do something for the future rather than just react.
I concur with that, and I think it'd probably be best that we actually look at this more seriously, so at the next budget committee meeting, we maybe come up with some data to help us understand. You did go into some details to the benefits of it, but maybe give us some samples of maybe other cities that can do it, because I do agree with you. And then I truly believe we're in a champagne period, and the champagne period, it's going to end at some point here, and we're going to hit a recession, and I think the pension obligation is going to hit us hard. And if we're not planning ahead, those reserves we're all very happy with will disappear really quickly. So the sooner we start planning for that, the better it is. So I'm very much in agreement that we should look at that, but make it an official policy that maybe we should look at it for obviously not this year, but for next year. Another big advantage is that a lot of our employee contracts are for 2-year base, and actually that helps a little bit easier in dealing with negotiations and things like that. So.
Yes, this year we did a 3-year contract with the labor groups, and so yes, we make it easier. But because I did 5-year projection, the year 3, 4, or 5 was pretty scary, so I don't want to show it yet.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I think we could all probably go on for quite a while about how diligent and hardworking both our budget committee and our city employees are. And I wanted to wait until this opportunity to thank Diana for all the, sorry, it's been one of those days, for all the hard work that you continually do. And we have some very key department heads here that really do manage. And I know it is a team, and I know you guys have a lot of really diligent employees, but you guys lead the way. Even you, Jarb. So that was a joke. Anyway, no, but you guys do a phenomenal job, and we are very very appreciative as residents of this community, as citizens that live here. We really are very happy that you guys keep control over everything, so.
And at the budget workshop, I did ask each department head to present what was their accomplishment this year and what they plan for next year. And you remember, it's quite extensive for each department and what they're doing. Next is the 5-year capital improvement project for fiscal year 2018-19 to 22-23. Again, similar to my introduction every year, this is the plan for the future capital improvement projects. And we divide this into 7 major categories. There's fleet, which has to do with vehicles for the city, general building, park and recreation, sewer, storm drain, street and street light, waters, and sewer. Well, we just went over sewer. So that's the different category, 7 category. It is capital improvement projects. And we also provide the funding source where the money coming from to do this project. And there's a lot of them, 31 or 32 funding source. So first is the fleet. The city maintains our own vehicles here in town. We have 1 fleet manager to take care of all our vehicles. And so for next fiscal year, 2018-19, we plan to purchase a F-150 trucks. We have a high lift trucks to replace the lights fixtures and also the tree trimming. We plan to purchase a new sewer vector trucks, and this is the new state law that required that the city have to clean all the storm drain system and be zero waste going to the river. So we have to get another vector trucks to clean our catch basin. And we plan to purchase another tractor mower for the parking department. So this is what we budgeted for next year. And for the future years, what I did with the recommendation from the budget committee, I have a list of the city vehicles and the projected life of vehicles and how long the vehicle lasts and how much money we should set aside so that we can replace those vehicles. So I have to give the budget committee a thank you for their recommendation. So that's why we have a list and of the project for the future years. I mean, vehicle for the future years. For general
May I ask you a question about that? If you can go back to the previous slide. Now, we've got a huge new medical center being put up. Is that going, I'm assuming that's going to require the city to purchase more equipment to help provide the public services they will expect?
Yes. We did talk about it last year. We plan to purchase new ladder trucks.
But I don't see that. Is that up here?
No, is that we plan to use a special fund. I mean, what's special?
So, so the intent is that will be closer to opening of the building. We're trying to get a little more of the life service out of our current ladder truck. So actually the two will culminate pretty close to the replacement cycle for our current, as well as the purchase of the new one. So you don't get a lot for used equipment. So we're trying to make those align, but that will come closer to the end of, the beginning of occupancy of that building.
But I don't see that in here. Is that in a different part of the budget?
No, you're correct. I need to put them on there. Yes.
Okay.
Additionally, that's part of the formula. If you remember, in our impact mitigation requirement on the medical center, it was to be in parallel with the VA. In our agreement with the VA, there is an element of buying into fleet replacement. So in theory then, if the per bed cost that we landed with the medical center, some of that money should be being put away for fleet replacement.
And I remember the discussion. I don't remember the conclusion. So they've agreed that that's part of what they will be contributing to.
Yes, that was a mitigation requirement, and they are paying that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we will purchase the ladder trucks. I think it costs like $1 million.
Yes, and in initial presentation, it was put as a condition for them to purchase the unit. After the council debate over the matter, it was simply that will be part of what their annual payments go to help offset the cost of maintaining the fleet.
Okay, for general building, as you remember, this fiscal year, we did a lot of improvement to general building. We paint the buildings, we fixed the roof. So this coming year, we plan to replace a couple air conditioning units, replace some light bulb with LED, and there'll be more project for the following fiscal year. For parks, we plan to do more tree planting. We do that every year. We plant more trees, shrubs. This year alone, we plant almost 2,000 shrubs and trees. We plan to install the security lighting and camera at Rare City Park. At Cottonwood Park, we plan to put in a rubberized play surface. And at Alma Digna Park, we plan to do that for next year. We might do some art in public place in the future years and some additional site improvement to different parks in the futures. For the sewer improvement, we are doing very good as far as sewer system go in the city. What we plan to do for not the next fiscal year, but maybe in the future year this is Campus Street. This is the new hospital. What we might end up to do is figure out what is their capacity, future capacity is for the sewer. So the goal is to at least jack and bore a steel casing underneath the railroad track so that in the future we need to upsize or increase the pipe size or add additional sewer pipe to go underneath the railroad track, it will be ready for it.
That's a pretty evolved project, right? To get the rail lines and everybody to agree on that.
Yes, yes. So for example, a couple of years ago, we did put the storm drain underneath the railroad track. So it took quite a while to get a permit through the Union Pacific Railroad. For storm drain, again, we are in very good shape as far as storm drain system go. Next year, we plan to budget $200,000 to install a storm drain up on Anderson Way to bring extend the pipe and in that area down. For street improvement for next fiscal year, we have three different funding sources. We have gas tax, we have SB1 funding, which is also the gasoline tax, and we have the regional transportation. So for example, at the intersection of Redlands and California, there's the regional transportation fund that we can use for this project. We also have I-10 off-ramp that we received $1 million grant from Caltrans, and we get some money from IVDA to help us pay for. We also plan to use the Measure I money for pavement rehabilitation on Business Center Drive, Corporate, and this area right here. In addition to that, as part of SB1, we plan to, the picture is probably better in the report. In this neighborhood right here on campus, Irish, Tulip, we plan to replace the water line and the laterals. At the same time, when we complete replacement, the pipe, we use the street money to pave the street. So we grind overlay. For this year, we completed the neighborhood of San Juan and San Marcos, and also Huron from Lawton to Pecan. We did that this year. We also plan to do this neighborhood on Oakwood, Con, and that area.
That's all done through a contractor, correct?
Oh, yes, yes. We prepare the plan in-house. I do the design. We have a student to help us with the drafting. We go out to bid. We do our inspection in-house and do construction management in-house, but we contract out to do the work. And so after that, we have future years what we plan to do for the next couple of years. Oh, by the way, we plan to do Star Street and to use CDBG money for that. So we can replace the wall lateral and come back and grind overlay the street. Next, for the water, we plan to, again, replace a pipeline on Irish, Tulip, Daisy, and then come back and overlay. So the following year, we plan to do this in this neighborhood, south of Lawton and north of Huron. Replace the pipeline and then grind overlay the street. So the goal is, believe it or not, within 5 years, we would have replaced almost the water line here in town that's older than 50 years old. So all the old pipe kind of west of Benton, it will be replaced. So, and that is amazing.
And I assume all of this will alleviate the issues of flooding that we've had in the past.
No, sir, this is water, not
This is
storm drain.
water.
Yes.
But I thought some of it was,
That's the storm drain, the flooding is storm drain.
yeah,
We took care of that already.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Another thing that Diana mentioned was we plan to replace the radio read meters to 4G, and the goal is by next year, hopefully we'll replace every single meters here in town. A couple of years ago, we installed a receiver on top of the reservoir here, and on top of the reservoir on Anderson Way. So the way the radio read work is they send out a signal every second, and so it will be received at this tower right here. And with the fiber optic, this signal carry all the way down to the city hall. So instead of have to go out and read the meters, the lady at finance can just push the button. And eventually the goal is the homeowner can just log on to their computer and look at their water consumption with the graph and everything. So that's the plan.
And when will that be?
My goal is probably 1920. Next year, 1819 is replace the meter. 1920 is hopefully the software will work and get that module to. No, sir. Fiscal year 1920. Fiscal year.
Yeah, 2020, not 1920.
I'm sorry.
Well, he's meaning fiscal year 2019, 2020. He's
Yes.
just cutting the 20 out of.
Okay, so that's a map, and this is all the project for the next 5 years. And again, for sure is the one that in this column, 2018-19, this is the one that will get done next fiscal year, and this is the future year. Under the column 22-23, that is kind of placeholder, so that can happen in the future. That's pretty much in my report. Any question? Thank you.
Okay, now we take these individually, or, because I want to,
There's one item where you
right. So,
step aside.
are we going to take the rest, can we take the rest as a group? How do we do that? Should we pull the one item? So I am just, again, in the abundance of caution, just because we try to be extremely above board here, because I work for the Sheriff's Department, I am going to recuse myself when we talk specifically about the budget for the Sheriff's Department, which is item 14G. So I'm going to hand over everything to Councilman Pescu for that. So we want to handle that now, we can do that, and then we can come back and do the final budget.
Do that first.
Okay. So at this time, we'll just go ahead and do item number G, which is Schedule A pertaining to contract to Sheriff's Department. I should note, unless I'm missing it, but the only thing inside the agenda was actual presentation and no detailed reports on any of the other items. Am I missing something?
Yes, it's in the booklet that we presented.
Okay, but not the digital. I'm looking at the digital, and the only thing in the digital was your presentation. That was it.
You can't depend on digital. There's good paper that describes all of this.
So we,
That's just a technicality, but I was, so. See the presentation. And then- I see. So it's just,
Collapse it,
okay.
non-collapse it, but it's there.
okay, thank you. All right, so we're just moving item number 14G. Do I hear a motion?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's so ordered. I guess we can bring him back and he can do the rest.
Okay, do we move all the rest of the items as a group? And I'll entertain a motion for that.
And I'll second the 2018-19 budget.
And it should be noted that's A through L with the exception of G, which was passed separately.
Okay. And does this require a formal vote, or can we do it by consensus?
Require a roll call, just the voice vote.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it passes unanimously.
And again, good job, Budget Committee.
Yes, I would like to thank you, the Budget Committee and the City Council and the staff. It's been fun. It's been
All right. So moving right along into reports of councilmen. I've got a couple of things that both Dr. Daly and I wanted to bring up. There were questions that we've encountered over the last week or so. So we're hoping to bring these up and maybe get an answer. You can come back at a future date and we can talk about them. And the first thing is the paramedic fee. I think we can understand the necessity of where the paramedic fee originated, how we got here at that time, what it's used for, how it actually really does supplement a lot of the life-saving services that we provide. Without getting too far off, and well, the fire chief can redirect me if I need to, but you have to understand that our firemen are obviously the first responders on all medical aid calls here in the city, and they really get out there and they do about 99.99% of all the patient care, stabilizing the patient, administering narcotics, communicating with the hospital, doing all that kind of stuff. And the ambulance service arrives and they pick up the patient and go to the hospital. But we always put one of our paramedics on the rig to go to the hospital also, and that paramedic care stays all the way through to the hospital, correct?
If it's critical. If it doesn't require really pushing meds or doing advanced life support, we'll let the ambulance take the patient.
So that's that 0.1% of the 99.99 I didn't cover. So, but the bottom line is, and they do a great job, but they're the ones that get to bill for all those services. We're not able to recoup any of that as far as a city. And so part of that paramedic fee and some of those things helps us recover some of those costs and fees. So I think we understand that, and we were good with it. We had a resident that asked about those folks that might be indigent, living on a fixed income, maybe in a subsidized housing location, things like that, that to most folks, maybe the $50 a year fee doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it can be a whole lot to somebody on a very fixed and low income. So I believe it's been talked about before, and we've never, probably just haven't addressed it because we've never really had kind of a plan in place. So we're just wondering if we can get some clarification or a plan, or maybe something we can talk about or think about on how to deal with those specific situations.
Okay, I'd be happy to bring it back, and at a later day, Chief Bender can talk about the conversation that we have with the county and AMR, and so that's it's also.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of other stuff.
In terms of
coming
our current circumstance, we do allow to work specifically with low-income situations.
Right, on a case-by-case basis, right. And that may be where we need to leave it. Maybe it's not something that we address, and we still have that caveat that it can be a case-by-case basis. But
at the moment, the council has given us great latitude to work with those folks.
Yeah.
You notice the revenues aren't huge in that program. A lot of that is because we work very closely. And part of that is the intent of the council. The hope was to deal with insurance dollars to the table, less out of pocket. Yeah. Are not as many insurances paying for that currently, right, as we would have hoped.
Yeah, that's what was brought up to us.
There has been an effort at the federal level to re-look at the whole Medicare services mechanism for billing. As you stated, it's the transportation that triggers the billing point, not the actual patient care services that are delivered. It's the ride to the hospital, because back in the 60s, 70s, when EMS really evolved after Vietnam, it was really that ambulance that was visioned, okay, that's what we need to pay for. As EMS has evolved into your first responders are those people now. The mechanisms that Medicare, federal services haven't really evolved with it. So there are efforts. I would have hoped that would have been done already, but that's politics and the pace at which some of that happens. So that is still an effort way beyond the scope of our city to try to change what is the billing point and push it more towards the patient care services that are delivered, even where to the point where Medicare realizes we're incentivizing the transport to the hospital.
Correct.
Even in situations where
It's not necessary.
we may be able to treat and release, but people are incentivized by, no, we're going to take you to the hospital because that's where the pay comes from. Where in our case, if we can avoid that transport, the cost to the citizen, the impact on the emergency fee, I mean, we certainly would love that. So we see a day where the efforts are to create that first response billing mechanism, and we wouldn't have to do our current program. But those aren't in place yet at the federal level.
Well, the feedback was extremely positive, especially from one resident that, unfortunately gets visited a lot by your folks, but she was very proud and very happy with the service, and it just, for some people, that $50 fee, and she pays it regularly in anticipation that she knows that, unfortunately, her circumstance is that she's probably going to get those rides. So it's just something I think worth looking at, and maybe we don't adopt anything official and we leave it case by case. So, but it hasn't been talked about in a while, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Well, if I can just follow up on that, I think that, it's, this whole democratic process is a good thing because Councilman Duper and I are walking the streets these days. And as he said, she's very, very complimentary of the services she's getting, but on her fixed income, that $50 fee poses a real challenge. So I guess my question is, how do we communicate with the public on this kind of stuff? And you say it's possible to make exceptions. How would the average citizen even know that?
Well, I guess, there are flyers that have gone around over time that discuss the different programs. Mm-hmm. In terms of our overall city philosophy of how hard we do or don't push collections, I hate to communicate too boldly how we approach, because I think that changes.
It's awkward. Yeah.
It's awkward.
Sure.
But the feedback I've got on what I believe the council direction is not to be pressing all that hard on those issues. And so when my office communicates with them, they're treated as fairly as possible, considering their circumstances.
Appreciated. Comment out here. Mr. Miller?
You have a number one profit recovery collection service in place in the finance department. The company I used to work for 16 years is very effective and I don't want to say, it's not
intrusive.
Demeaning, it's not demeaning to the people. It just gets the point across. Very effective.
Thank you.
Now that the overall program, certainly the council could look at that again. There was definitely a program that was pushed by the previous city manager. He had run it in his previous city when it came in. We were definitely, it was in the downturn of the economy. The budget committee liked to see it in place, but certainly if the council would like to see, hey, where are we at with really out-of-pocket versus insurance pay? Who's really bringing that money to the table now? We'll look at the true revenues to it and look at the program.
Well, some of us have been involved in some of that other higher-level discussion that city managers bringing up, and that's the area-wide contract that one organization has had for quite a while to do that transportation. And that's at the county level. We've had multiple discussions with our county supervisors over that, representation from several of our local cities, because that's kind of lingering out there. But it would be nice to know and be helpful for the other members of the council if we could get an idea of what the costs are, because I don't think any of us want to pull back any of that care. We just talked the other night at Budget Committee about the life-saving rate in this town specifically related to cardiac events is up, in the 30-some %. And I think that's significant, and that's awesome to hear that. So we want to be able to provide those services at however we do that. But it would be interesting to know what those costs are, because again, we bear the brunt of a majority of those costs, yet we are not able to recoup them. So as for future meeting, maybe we could discuss some of that.
Councilmember Duper made, or Mayor Pro Tem Duper, excuse me, made reference to the county transportation contract, which is up for rebid renewal. One of the elements that the fire chiefs and certainly our input as a city has been is we would like to see an element of the new countywide transportation contract include pass-through capacity in which the ambulance provider, the transport provider would pass through a certain amount when our resources are on a patient stabilization fee that we get on scene, we stabilize the patient. Those are out there, those exist. So as the county's working through that whole contract scenario, that's one of the consistent inputs or feeds that we're giving is we believe that that new contract does need to include a pass-through element to it back to the cities, the organizations that are providing that patient stabilization. So that's not done yet. That's also in the works, but that's what we're trying to make sure that element stays in there.
And then finally, I had the opportunity, I'd never seen this before, but had the opportunity to attend a pickleball tournament here in town on Sunday. And I was impressed that there was probably, in my estimation, probably about 1,000 people out there. There was a lot of people out there. So I'm not sure what they officially counted, but it was held at the Drayson Center, and apparently, from the sources I have, they say that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. Yes. So what it is some of you guys may know, right? Do you play? Okay. What did you think? Was it?
It looked a lot like what I used to play paddleball when I was in high school a long time ago, but it's a different ball and a different paddle. But it's like a miniature tennis court. So like racquetball outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now there are a couple of places around. I mean, in the region where people have converted. So this is my question to the city manager, and it's not. They don't convert tennis courts into pickleball courts, but you can use both. And what it involves is painting a different color set of lines on the court, so people can play within the rules of the pickleball game. And the Drayson Center's done that to a couple of their courts, which is great for the community. And apparently, I mean, there were a lot of people there, but you have to be a member of the Drayson Center. And so it was brought up and asked that obviously we have our tennis courts both at Helder Crooks and down in Bryn Mawr. What would be the feasibility of painting those lines? And I don't know what I'm assuming that wouldn't cost all that much. And if it is in such demand where our residents want to play that game, if that's a possibility for us to do. So maybe we can look into that. Yes. Anybody else? Maybe?
I'll just comment what I told the city manager yesterday, and that is that, in my new status as a retiree, I have a little more time, and I drive around and go to the parks and so forth. Our parks get a lot of action, and I'm very proud of our parks and the things that we've done with them, and the tennis courts that Councilman Duper is referring to. I mean, most mornings I see people out there playing. Yeah, it's amazing. So, being in the blue zone, I appreciate the fact that we give our citizens opportunity for recreation. I was a little surprised when you told me that a lot of the people using our facilities come from out of town, but that's part of our broader community, I guess.
Okay, report. I'm sorry, John.
Just one report. I walk my dog every night, and I've noticed it seems to me the trees are a little lower. I poked my eye out almost a couple of times. I'm not lobbying for my own thing, but that's just where I walk. So I'm assuming it's like that way around the whole city. You can find them. Yeah. I just like around like Antonio Circle. I walk around. I you know, it gets kind of dark, and I don't want anybody else to get their eyes poked out. I assume it might be that way by Congressman, I put you on Mr. Daly's house. I could take Teddy over there, and you want to know about my commitment to recycling, we can make a little deposit for you over there and help you with your fertilizer. but I've just noticed as I drive through Loma, it seems like some of the trees are hanging a little low, and probably ought to get those trimmed up.
Yeah, this year we spent a lot of tree trimming around that neighborhood and also on Tulip, Daisy Street. Yeah.
So you know, it's interesting, but we all five of us live in different parts of the city, which is actually pretty unique and pretty good. And I'll bring it up here too. I've actually had people that have commented about my area of town on Mission, and I know they're not city plants and shrubs, but the stuff on the north side of Mission is, I mean, it grows over into the roadway all the time. So are we cutting that back and then charging back, or how?
No, we can deal with the court enforcement.
I mean, it was brought up to me, and they're absolutely right. I mean, it gets to a point where it's growing into the roadway, and so, and I know that's not a city thing. That's other folks, but okay. Thank you. All right, reports of officers. Okay, that concludes our agenda for the City Council. We'll move into our next meeting is scheduled for May 22nd at 7 p.m., and that will be a joint meeting with the Planning Commission regarding Area D. And we will open up should we do the Housing Authority next?
You haven't closed this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was just doing that. Sidetracked time. We'll close the City Council. We are still open in joint with the Housing.
The Housing, correct. Okay.
So let's move on to the Housing Authority agenda.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay, we have first and second for the consent calendar. Are there any items to be added or deleted real quick?
No, sir.
Okay. All in favor of the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We already dispensed with the budget and new business and any reports of officers. Chair or member reports. Not hearing anything. The Housing Authority is adjourned, and we will open up the successor agency agenda. Any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Any oral reports, public participation? This is your chance to run down your final chance of the night, Kurt. Not doing it. All right. Almost. All right. We have the consent calendar that's glaring at us. I'm going to take a motion to move it. A first? A second? All in favor say aye. Aye. That consent calendar is dispensed with, and that will adjourn the successor agency. We will see you on the 22nd.
Good job, Phil. Good job.
They paid me to be quiet.